Hopefully the Grinch did not steal your fantasy aspirations and you are ready to punch that ticket this week in an attempt at fantasy glory once again. Hi, I'm back. I'm Matt Donnelly, and this is your RotoBaller top 5 fantasy defenses that you can trust with confidence here in week number 16. And let's kick things off with the Houston Texans versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, Houston must start fantasy defense no matter which way you want to cut it. But when you're playing the Las Vegas Raiders, that is even more reason to be an absolute smash start. Houston, they enter week number 16, 6th in the NFL in sacks with 38. Donnelly Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., 5th and 8th respectively with 11 and 10.5 sacks this season. Remember what Myles Garrett did against the Raiders a couple weeks ago? That could happen for both these bookends this week. We're talking about two bookends who are going to be a huge problem for this Raiders offensive line. This offensive line, the one that has surrendered a league worst 54 sacks this season. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, Kenny Pickett, he was given the call and he responded by completing 15 of 25 passes for 64 yards. That's how bad this Raiders offense has become. In that contest, Pickett, he was picked up once and he was sacked 4 times. Look, there's no way not to start the Houston Texans defense. Since week number 4, Houston, they are one of just 2 teams to average more than 10.5 fantasy points per game. The team sitting third over that period is averaging just 8.6 fantasy points. Now, over the Texans' last 11 contests, this Houston defense, they have surpassed 10 or more fantasy points on 6 occasions. When one of the stingiest defenses faces one of the most inept offensive units, it doesn't get much better for fantasy managers. The Texans could single-handedly put fantasy managers in the fantasy championships with a 15-plus performance against the Raiders this week. Another defense I feel good about. How about the Detroit Lions as they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers? Detroit saw their postseason dreams take a bit of a hit, but if things fall just right and with a little bit of luck, they still have an outside shot at making the playoffs. So you're saying there's a chance, and if they have a chance, you know that Dan Campbell is going to have his squad ready to play. This season, the Lions haven't been that must-start DST that they have been in seasons past. After finishing 2024 as a DST 10 overall, they find themselves as a streaming unit, averaging a full point per game less. Luckily, this week, they face a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that ranks 23rd in passing offense, 29th in rushing, and 27th in total yards per game. Detroit, they have been stout against the run for much of this season, and their 11 interceptions have them tied for 10th in the NFL. Pittsburgh, they have been relying on explosive plays courtesy of DK Metcalf, and when those aren't there, this offense, it becomes stagnant. Worst case scenario, they repeat last week's performance where they sacked Matthew Stafford twice and picked him off once. Now, the difference between Pittsburgh's offense and the Los Angeles Rams offense, Pittsburgh, they're not scoring 40-plus points. The Steelers, they've topped just 30 points 3 times this season before the Monday Night Football contest against the Miami Dolphins, with 2 of those 3 performances coming against the lowly Bengals defense. Another defense that I like to stream this week, how about the New Orleans Saints as they take on the New York Jets? Now, if you thought that the Steelers offense was bad, have you seen the New York Jets offense under Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, and now Brady Cook? New York, they are averaging just 147 passing yards per game, the worst mark in the National Football League. They also sit 29th in total offense and 26th in scoring, averaging just 19.7 points per game. While the Saints are averaging fewer than 6 fantasy points per game this season, they have topped 11 fantasy points or more on 3 occasions, showing that they could be fantasy relevant in plus matchups. And this is about as easy a matchup as you are going to find at this time of the season. In week number 15, the Saints held Bryce Young to 15 of 24 passing for 163 yards. They also held Ted McMillan to just 2 receptions for 25 yards, and they limited Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard to 3.1 and 3.6 yards per carry, respectively. Want another defense? How about the Minnesota Vikings as they head to New York to take on the Giants? Look, the Dallas Cowboys offense, they are as good as it gets. Entering week number 15, Sunday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys were averaging 394.9 yards of total offense per game. That was the best in the NFL, while averaging 29.3 points per game, which was the 5th best. Before the date with the Cowboys, the Vikings had produced 9 and 18 fantasy points respectively in their previous 2 contests. Back in week number 14, they would go on to force a fumble, a pair of sacks, and a pair of interceptions against the Commanders' duo of Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota, while also keeping a clean slate on the scoreboard. The previous week, they sacked Sam Darnold 4 times and held him to 128 passing yards with just a pair of receptions and 23 yards receiving going to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Minnesota, they've quietly gone about their business this season, forcing 14 turnovers and registering 35 sacks. For those scoring at home, the Giants, they've allowed 37 sacks, which happens to be the 11th most. And finally, how about we start the Tennessee Titans against the Kansas City Chiefs? I hate to kick a team when they're down, but Patrick Mahomes had his season end in more than one way last week. Not only did Mahomes and the Chiefs' streak of 7 straight title appearances come to an end, but the future Hall of Famer also tore his ACL in that loss to the Chargers. Now there is an ominous mood surrounding the Chiefs as they enter week number 16. Kansas City hasn't been in this position in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era. And with nothing to play for, is Gardner Minshew going to be enough to make Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy fantasy relevant down the stretch? I don't know. Kansas City, welcome to Minshew Mania. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly. Minshew completed 3 of his 5 passes in relief of Patrick Mahomes and got the Chiefs down into field goal range. Then with a chance to tie the game, Gardner Minshew goes, hey, I don't want no stinking tie. I want to go for the win. Then he threw a pick to eliminate the Chiefs from the postseason. With so much uncertainty surrounding this Chiefs offense, the Tennessee Titans are in a great spot to be a productive DST unit here in the fantasy playoffs. While the Tennessee Titans are averaging less than 5.8 fantasy points per game, they have scored 15 or more fantasy points twice this season, so that is something to kind of keep in mind. And something else to keep in mind, if you haven't done so already, hit that like and hit that follow button, and be sure to head to RotoBaller.com for all the latest news and fantasy analysis, and we'll see you next week.